What's going on, guys? So yesterday was our last day at our current apartment. Today we're handing back the keys. And so in this video I want to show you the apartment where we lived for about a year. And not just that, I want to show you the neighborhood. I want to talk to you about the living situation, the pluses and minuses, and obviously give you a full room tour of the apartment. And then at the end of the video I'm gonna tell you how much the apartment costs and also give you some tips and tricks. So right now we are right in the center of Kiev. There's Krishchatyk over there, the main street. This is Teatralnaya station. We're pretty much at the heart, in the heart of Kiev. This is the center of Kiev. That is the Pushkinskaya street. Across the street we have different coffee shops. You have a lot of nice restaurants on Pushkinskaya. You have a lot of good stuff. And so this is a very desirable area. I'm a person that likes to live in the center. And the thing about Eastern Europe is that typically the centers of the city are very beautiful, are very historic. And then once you venture outside, outside the center, you know, like towards the outskirts of the city, it's not gonna get as nice because you're gonna have a lot of these Soviet buildings. So in places like Eastern Europe, centers are desirable. And now let's go in and let me show you the building where we lived and everything around it. Right here is one of the entrances to our apartment building. There's also another entrance that I'm going to show you in a second. And as you can see, there's remodeling. There's some reconstruction happening here. When we moved in, they just started. So about a year ago, they just started. And in the past year, as you can see, they came a long way. It's almost done. The construction is almost done. Thankfully, we are living a little bit inside, and so we didn't really have to hear the noise and stuff like that of this construction. Right now, we are entering the main area of our building. And so there's a little bit of I would call it kind of an area here. It's used as a parking lot. And this is our building towards the right. This is the entrance here. And one of our windows, well, we have a couple of windows, they are facing this garden here. And last summer there was a lot of cats hanging out. It was kind of cool. There's a lot of friendly cats. Somebody actually gifted this little cat house. Unfortunately, the cats weren't all that crazy about living there. They prefer to live under the cars and somewhere else where they hide. And here's the main door to our apartment here. This is what it looks like. We're entering. We have two doors here. This building here is not a Soviet building. This is a pre-revolutionary building that was built before the whole communist thing. And so you have these high ceilings, and this is very typical of the buildings you're gonna find in the center of these big Eastern European cities. And we are actually on this first floor here, and this is our apartment door. We're gonna enter, and let me give you a quick tour. All right, so we have the main, let me turn on the lights here. All right, so we have the main corridor. Okay, one thing I want to bring to your attention is these high ceilings here. They are, I think they're around 3 to 4 meters, if not actually 4 meters. And this is considered a lot. This is like pretty much the maximum that you can get. And so it gives us this very, very open air kind of space. We also have an intercom here, which was installed by the owner of this apartment. And now we're walking, and this apartment is a three-room apartment, or in the United States, this would be considered a 2-bedroom apartment. So here's the main room. Right? It's all furnished. It came absolutely furnished. Everything that you see came with the apartment because we already moved out. And this is the main room. And this room faces the garden below. Okay? And I kind of have mixed feelings about this. I'm going to talk about kind of the pros and cons toward the end of the video. So I kind of have a little bit of a mixed feelings. So you can see, you know, people driving in. You can open this window. You can see the cats. You know, hanging out. You can come down, you can just chill, but mostly it's a parking lot and there's really not a lot of things that you can do. So this is the main room. We used to actually spend a lot of time here, just hanging out. During the day, this is a cool room to hang out. Very, very big apartment. And this apartment is around 70 to 75 square meters, okay? Now I want to show you the office, okay? This is a room here, and this room I use as an office. And this room actually faces the other side, right? So this is the back of the apartment building, right? We have, you know, another kind of area here. People are using it as parking. To the left of us, there's like a salon, a women's salon to do hair and nails and stuff like that. And so this was furnished with this couch here. Let me turn on the lights so you can see it better. So all of this was here. I use this as an office here, home office. I put my desk here, and I was, you know, this was my home office, and this was awesome because I work a lot from home. Well, most of the work I do from home, if not all the work I do from home. And this was very useful because I can just come in and work here. There's a couple of closets here, some towels that were there, and all of these things. I had a lot of equipment here. I had a table, a chair, things like that. Next, I want to show you the kitchen, right? So if we go here, we have the kitchen. And the kitchen, as you can see, is fairly spacious. It's not a huge kitchen, but it's also not a small kitchen. We have, you know, a fridge. We have, you know, the sink here. We have the kettle to boil the water for the tea. We have the microwave. We have a lot of things. And one thing you have to realize is that in Ukraine, whenever you're renting an apartment, it's typically going to be furnished. Even when you buy apartments, sometimes, not always, especially if it's an older building, it's typically going to be fairly furnished because the owner is going to leave furniture and stuff like that. So this is the kitchen. We can open up the kitchen and we have a little balcony here. Okay, so we can come in here and we have a balcony. You can chill here. Not much of a view. You have the view of the back of the house here. You have this the Salon Krasоты, the women's kind of salon there, and you have more parking here, so not much happening here. That over there, I believe, was like an abandoned tennis court from like Soviet times. It's actually pretty cool. I dream of getting a drone one of these days and flying it on top of it just to see what it looks like. That right there is that. And then you have kind of parts of this building. As you can see, that building right there, if you walk over it, you're going to be in an area where we entered. So beyond this building is going to be that building that they're working on, that they're almost finished. All right, so that's the kitchen. Let's walk back. Let me show you the bathroom, and then I'm going to show you another room. This is the bathroom here. And the bathroom is fairly spacious for an apartment. You know, the first time I entered here, I was like, wow, this is a cool bathroom. We have a tub here. We have shower. We have a sink. We have areas for clothing. We have a nice washing machine here, very, very important, 3.5 kilos. Not a huge volume washing machine, but fairly good. So it's a fairly nice bathroom here. We have some tiles here, tiles on the floor, tiles on the walls here. We also have this chair, and everything that you see came with the apartment. We also have this chair. And now let me show you the master bedroom. Okay, so this right here is the master bedroom. It's also fairly large. The windows face the back, so they don't face the main area. They face the back, just like my office, just like the kitchen as well. We have this, and this is a nice bedroom here. It's pretty cool. It's not. It could be a little bit bigger, but it's good size for two people. We have a mirror there. We have a little kind of cabinet. I guess it's for maybe doing makeup or something like that. It's not a cabinet that you're going to be getting work done. We have closets here that were filled up until yesterday. More closets. We have a little thing here. We call it a tumbochka in Russian, a small thing that we can just place things. And then we have the main area. This is the corridor. And so now I'm sitting at a place where I used to sit a lot, just chilling on this couch, these very comfortable pillows. And now I want to take this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about this apartment. So when we were originally looking for an apartment, I wanted something in the center. Like, I was not going to move to Kiev or Eastern Europe. I grew up in the US. And so I wasn't going to move to Eastern Europe and live somewhere outside the center. My prerequisite, if you will, was center, right? So we got this apartment. And the thing about apartments in the center is these are not going to be new buildings. These are going to be very old buildings. Most of the time, they're going to be pre-revolutionary. And the first thing that I liked about this apartment is the tall ceilings. Because if you're going to be living in a kind of a Soviet apartment, you're not going to have these tall ceilings. They're going to be half the height. Or maybe, so I think these ceilings are around 4 meters. In a Soviet apartment, they're going to be around 2.5 meters, probably 2.5 meters, maybe a little bit more than 2.5 meters. So you're going to see the difference. And so that was the big thing. Another plus of this apartment is it's fairly spacious. It's right in the center. You have a lot of activities. The metro station is like a couple of steps away. It's on the same block, which is a huge thing. And so in Ukraine, one of the kind of the big points of the big advantages of renting an apartment is they always say it's near the metro station. That way you can just take the metro and go to work. So this is another plus. One of the negatives about this apartment that I felt when we were looking, moving in, is that it doesn't face a busy street. The previous apartment that we lived in, which is actually very close, it's only a block away, it faced a busy street. And I kind of like that feeling of looking out and seeing a busy street, seeing movement, people, not feeling like I'm in the suburbs. But that's also a negative because it could be noisy, it could be uncomfortable, and maybe sometimes you want to enter the apartment and you just want to chill. And so as I realized, or as we realized, that it's actually an advantage sometimes not to be facing the busy street. And so another negative thing about this apartment is that in the winter, they turn on heating at some point, right? So I think they measure it by the degrees outside, and we have no control over the heating, right? They can turn it on. I remember I went to the US, I came back to Ukraine, and they already turned on heating. So when I came back, it was super hot in the apartment and we had no control, right? And this is all over, pretty much all over Eastern Europe they do that. Unless you buy a brand new apartment where you have individual control. You can turn it on, you can turn it off, but you cannot do this in this building. So that brings with it a couple of issues. The first issue is that it's gonna be hot, right? Depending on how much they turn on, it was hot. Me, as an individual, I don't know if you're like this, maybe you're like this as well, is that I like it when it's cool. My ideal temperature is like 17, 18 degrees. I like it when it's hot outside, but when I'm at home, I like it when it's fairly cool. I don't want to be at the house when it's 30 degrees. And so as a result, we had to open up a lot of these windows. And, you know, I was reading the news. A lot of other people in Kiev were doing the same thing. And so this is an issue. Now, the second problem with this issue is that you're going to get a very, very high heating bill. Okay, we were paying $200+ for everything, and the bulk of that was the heating. Okay, so just to show you the comparison is that in the winter our utilities were like $220, $215, and in the summer it's like $50, $60. This includes everything. Obviously includes water, gas, electricity, heating, internet, but heating is the bulk of it. Heating is really what breaks the bank here. And so that is the big difference. And this is a big negative, right? It's a fairly large apartment. And so you have no control over the heating bill that's going to come. And so people that had, you know, even bigger apartments, people that live in even bigger apartments, their heating bill was even bigger. And they were shocked because they are, you know, they own the apartment and they had to pay $200 for heating when, you know, last year they paid $150 or $100. So you have no control. And so what people do is they buy apartments in a new building and they have individual heating that they can't control. But for everybody else, they just have to put up with this. So that is a big negative. So when we got that heating bill, we were shocked. We were really, really shocked. We couldn't believe it, but we had no choice but to pay for it. Another negative of this apartment that we didn't really realize until just recently is that it's fairly cold in the summer. And so here in Ukraine, especially this year, there was like, it was a very kind of a bad year from a weather perspective because it was cold all year. It was a tough winter, and then the spring never came really. And now it's like the middle of May, and it's only starting to warm up. And so it was crazy. Like, you know, I was waiting for like warm weather. Everybody's waiting, and it's just barely warming up, right? It's barely warming up. And this apartment is still very cold. Today it's kind of warm, but maybe that's because we just entered it. But the past week or so, it was cold. Like, it was really cold. I mean, it was fairly cold. We had to wear like a sweater. When outside, it was fairly warm, right? It was like, you know, it was fairly warm outside. You can go on a t-shirt and maybe like a light jacket, but here you had to wear a sweater. And this is, I don't know what the reasoning for this, but this could be because of the structure of this building, because it's kind of inside. It doesn't face the sun. So that was like a fairly kind of a negative, because it was cold and outside it was warm. So we had to open the windows, the balcony, to let some air inside. The other negative of this kind of apartment is the neighbors, right, guys? You have to understand that if we move in, right, let's say I move in and I pay good amount of money for this apartment, right, this is center. The people you're gonna be surrounded with are people that lived here for all their lives, right? And they got apartments such as this one for free. And so they don't really value it as much, right? It's not like in the US where people, you know, they buy apartment, they move to a nice area, they move to a nice, you know, gated community or a nice apartment building, and everybody, you know, everybody's making money, everybody's successful. Here in Eastern Europe, you are going to be renting a nice apartment, but the people next to you are going to be just regular people that got it for free because they, you know, they lived here all their lives and they were here during the Soviet times. And so we had a grandma here just, you know, past this wall, just next to us, and this grandma was probably like, I don't know, 90 years old or maybe even older. And you know, at night, in the evenings, she had the TV really loud, right? So we couldn't even hear it, and then we couldn't even make out what shows she was watching. So it was kind of annoying. And there's really nothing that you can do, right? It's Ukraine, there's really nothing that you can do. So there's a couple of these disadvantages from that perspective, right? You're going to be surrounded by people that are not going to be, you know, from your perspective. So if you're an American, right, you're an American, you know, somebody that, you know, comes from the US, you want to live here, you're going to be surrounded by people that are of different socioeconomic classes, if you will. So that is an important thing to keep in mind. And so, you know, we moved to a different apartment, to a different neighborhood. We lived here, me and Marina, we lived in this area for like 2-3 years now, right? So we're very familiar with this area, and this is a great area. But we decided to try something new. We decided to go somewhere else and try a different neighborhood, try a different style. And it remains to be seen how things are gonna work out. And because this apartment is not cheap, it's fairly pricey when it comes to Ukraine. We were actually paying $800 for this apartment. And during winter, the utilities set us back another $200. So everything together during the winter months was $1,000. In the summer months, it's going to be less. It's going to be around $50 to $60 for utilities, bringing a total to around $850, $860. But in the winter, you're going to be paying $1,000. Now, I know many of you have asked in the comments on one of the previous videos, is like, how can people afford to pay $500, $600 for apartments? Maybe not even an apartment such as this one, maybe another apartment, if the monthly wage in Ukraine is like $500 or $400. Well, I'm gonna tell you how they do it. They do it because most of the people own apartments. Most of the people, if they are from the city, right? If these people were born in Kiev, we're in Kiev right now. If these people were born here, chances are 99% they own an apartment. So they don't have to pay for that. So they could be making, you know, $500, $600 a month, but they own the apartment. So their utilities are like $50, $100, right? It's a smaller apartment. So they're never gonna pay, you know, they're never gonna pay $600. It's only for foreigners or people out of town, out of the city, you know, people that moved here, they have to rent. And the first thing that Ukrainians do is they try to own an apartment right away. They wanna buy it, they wanna own it, because it's a little bit different than in the United States. I grew up in New York City. I also lived in California, in San Francisco for many, many years. That's my background. And I always rented an apartment. And in New York City, you can't really buy an apartment. It's just too expensive, right? Most of the people rent there. And so that's the first thing. The other thing about the US is that you can rent. I mean, my mother lives in New York City, and she's been renting an apartment for many, many years because she's renting it from like a company that owns many apartment buildings. So it's very stable. It's very secure. Nobody's going to kick her out tomorrow. But here in Ukraine, you're renting it from an individual most of the time, and he tells you, okay, you can do this, you can't do that, and that's fine. But he can also, a year from now, he can just tell you, look, I want to do remodeling, or I want to raise rents, or he can do whatever he wants. So you don't have that stability. And that is why in Ukraine, a country where there's not a lot of stability, things are always changing, there's a lot of corruption, it's not, you know, people want to own stuff, right? So the first thing people do when they move to a new city, or they're from another city, or from another country, or whatever the case may be, they want to own the apartment. And so that is the first thing they want to do. And that is why everybody in this building, I think there's another couple that are renting, and this is a young couple, they're also renting, if I'm not mistaken. But everybody else in this building, 90% of the people that are living here own apartments. And they're not rich, they're not wealthy, it's just they grew up here. They grew up here and they got it through inheritance. Maybe, you know, we know a couple here and they've been living here all their lives. The woman, it's a married couple, the woman grew up here, right? So her parents had an apartment here. And, you know, she got married and now they're living here. So she grew up here, right? And that is how people get apartments here, right? That is how people can afford to live in apartments like this. Of course, this is not the case with us foreigners, or as the case may be with myself, somebody who is out of the country, who doesn't own property here. We have to rent. And so that is how people rent. And so the pluses, what is the pluses of living in such apartment? Location. It's a nice apartment. Right. The negatives is that it's going to be an older building. You may have neighbors that are not, you know, not cooperative at times. Although in the center, you're going to have neighbors that are better. But still, we have a grandma that watches TV because probably she has hearing problems, and you can't really do something. And sometimes she watches TV until 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, and it's a pain. And so that is all that I wanted to cover with you guys. I really hope you enjoyed this tour. I know I've showed you some apartments previously, but I wanted to take this opportunity and actually show you an apartment where we lived for about a year. And maybe in some of the future videos, I'll show you an apartment that we moved into, and maybe even show you the neighborhood. And so that is all I wanted to share with you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, you have any requests, you want to see something else. I didn't, you know, clarify something. I would love to clarify anything that I can, because I really want to, you know, tell you about Ukraine as much as I can, because I want to make it accessible from you as somebody who is originally from here, but pretty much grew up in the US. I feel more American probably than Eastern European. All right, guys. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know below in the comments, like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in this kind of content, and I will see you in the next video.